And now the #1 story of the week. The Chief Information Officer of the Air Force, Lauren Nausenberger, expressed some reservations this week about the Defense Department's big bet on securing its supply chain. Those comments follow a big hire by the board that oversees that big bet and a review from the top of the department. Karlton Johnson is chairman of the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Accreditation Body. Karlton, welcome back. A lot to cover. Let's start with that Industry Advisory Council that CMMC has established. What's the goal of that council, and what's the feedback that you're looking for, Karlton?
Excellent, and thank you for having me back. In short, we've always talked about communicating and educating and keeping the industry informed, and just as important, letting them have a voice. That's exactly what the IAC is about. We're bringing the best and brightest together to talk not only about the implementation of CMMC, but to communicate any issues, concerns, and even look at opportunities to improve it over time and space. So we want the customer to have a direct interface with us and then work together with the government to make it even better.
How will your IAC go about interacting with industry to get that feedback and put it into something that's useful for you and your colleagues on the board to be able to interpret and make changes based on?
Excellent question. And as we continue to evolve this, the industry is really going to have the lift on how that works. We want to make sure that whatever we do, there's value addedness from the industry perspective. And so the initial conversation will be, what are the commitments, what are the goals and objectives that we're going to have as an industry team? And then together working with them to navigate that with our treasurer, YG Chand, who's going to facilitate that, to help them get that from ideas and thoughts and concepts to actual deliverables that they will execute over time and space.
One of the stakeholders, I imagine, in the work that IAC does is your new hire that I mentioned a moment ago, Matt Travis. Great background at CISA, at the Department of Homeland Security. What advantage do you think that gives him walking into this job to work with you and your colleagues?
I have to tell you, I'm extremely excited to have Matt Travis on board. His bona fides far exceed him. The gravitas that he's bringing to this conversation is second to none. So he was absolutely the right hire to bring in to do this. And specifically to what you talked about, his extensive leadership in the CISA environment, his experience with government, his experience with industry, all that's going to come together to help operationalize and professionalize what we're doing with CMMC. And with the IAC, he's going to be able to get that additional insight from industry so that he can be more effective in this job. I'm very excited to have him on board.
FedScoop report about his hiring says this: Travis will lead day-to-day operations at the AB, a job that's largely been filled by the AB's board of directors. That's you and your team in the nearly 15 months since it was incorporated. What will his hiring allow you and your colleagues to step back from on the board, and what will you continue to do, the board that is, that you've been doing all along?
And again, another great question. And this is exactly what we have planned to do from day one. The board came together as a team of professional volunteers. And volunteer, I should say, is not a pay grade. Volunteerism is a pay grade versus a skill level. And these people have done a lot of volunteerism to get this up and running. That said, that's not sustainable over long term. Bringing Matt and his team on board does exactly that, allows us to sustain operations, to scale up operations so that we can continue to deploy CMMC. And then the board of directors transforms from a board of director doers to a board that governs. And we provide that strategic oversight, guidance, and where necessary support to Matt so he can deploy CMMC and meet not only the obligations of the contract, but more importantly, help defend the defense industrial base.
The board, and no doubt Mr. Travis, will be interacting greatly with Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks and her team as she undertakes the review that I alluded to at the beginning of our conversation, Karlton. What's your sense of what that review will encompass? Do you know so far what that review will encompass, and what do you want and hope to demonstrate to the team that represents Secretary Hicks in that review? And
I think you'll respect my answer here. because that's a government action, I defer a lot of those to the government. What I will say from the AV perspective is, as always, we're going to remain transparent. Everything that we do is open and available to the government to understand what we're doing and to help make it better. So anything that we can do to support the effort to communicate and educate and then follow through with the deliverables of the contract, but also to inform the administration and team of what we're doing and how we can make it better. Extremely open to anything that can help us do things at the next level of excellence.
We have a little bit more than a minute left, Karlton. What's your timeline look like? What's the impact on that timeline of any of the things that we've talked about? The review from the Deputy Secretary's office, the hiring of Matt Travis, and so on. Are you accelerating the timeline that you envisioned the last time you were on the program? Are you staying the course? What does that look like?
As of today, I am staying the course. I say that because everything we've been doing to date has been in line with the timelines we've been given and worked with the DoD. That said, if that needs to accelerate, we're prepared to do what we need to do to accelerate. The main thing is that we want to make sure we stay in line with the commitments that we promise, we deliver on what we promise, and we, at the end of the day, we meet the obligations of the contract. That requires a ability to be agile, but also ongoing conversation. And we're staying in lockstep with the government with those conversations.
Karlton Johnson, thanks very much for joining me today. It's great to have you back on the program.
Thank you.